The morning light of October 14th filtered through the sheer curtains of my bedroom window, casting long pale rectangles on the carpet. It was a Tuesday in Stonebridge, Ohio, home of the strictest HOA in the county. Tuesdays were usually reserved for the mundane rhythm of garbage trucks, school buses, and the low hum of suburban maintenance that lulled you into believing everything was permanent. But this silence was different. It was heavy, deliberate, like the air in a room where an argument had just ended, or perhaps where one was about to begin. I lay there for a moment, listening. The house was 3,000 square feet of modern farmhouse architecture, a structure built on appearances, and usually it was loud. My stepmother Patrice, the self-appointed HOA president, made noise simply by existing. Her heels on the hardwood, her voice echoing on speakerphone during board meetings, the constant clatter of her rearranging things that did not need rearranging while quoting Covenant Section 4.2. My half-sister Belle was a vortex of digital noise, TikTok sounds, and slammed doors. But today the hallway outside my door was a vacuum. There were no balloons taped to my door frame. There was no smell of cinnamon rolls or bacon wafting up the stairs. I did not expect a party. I had stopped expecting those when I was 12. But the total absence of acknowledgement felt like a physical weight. It was not just that they had forgotten. It felt as if they were holding their breath, waiting for the HOA board meeting to finish its important business. I rolled out of bed and checked my phone. There was a single notification on the lock screen. It was a text message from Belle sent at 7:30 in the morning. "Chill today, sis. HOA board is handling important business. We will do dinner or something later." I stared at the screen. Chill today. The phrasing was casual, dismissive. Yet the second sentence carried a weird bureaucratic weight. HOA board is handling important business, not dad is busy or mom is out. The entity itself was rejecting me. It was a command disguised as a sisterly update. It sounded like a door being closed in my face, gently enough to not cause a bruise but firmly enough to lock. I pulled on a hoodie and walked downstairs. The stairs in our house were hardwood, polished to a fault, slippery if you were wearing socks. I moved quietly. I had learned to move quietly years ago in this neighborhood. Visibility was often a liability. If they didn't see you, they couldn't cite you for a violation. If they didn't hear you, they couldn't add you to the next agenda. The kitchen was empty. The morning sun hit the quartz countertops, making them gleam with a sterile, cold brightness. On the center island, where a birthday cake might have sat in a different version of my life, there was only a yellow sticky note stuck to the granite. HOA lawyer late. Don't make a fuss. My stomach tightened. The handwriting was my father's, sharp, jagged, hurried. Graham Caldwell did not go to lawyers. My father was a man who believed legal paperwork was a scam designed to drain his wallet. He managed his construction business with handshakes and invoices he typed up himself. He avoided suits. He avoided offices. For him to be meeting the HOA lawyer at 8 in the morning on a Tuesday, something was not just wrong. It was catastrophic. Or it was calculated. And the name Hart. I knew that name, Evan Hart. He had been my grandmother's lawyer. He was the man who had read her initial will 5 years ago, the one that had left everyone disappointed because the bulk of the estate had vanished into a trust that nobody could touch. Why was Graham meeting with him now? A cold prickle of intuition walked up my spine. It wasn't fear exactly. It was the sensation you get when you realize you are the punchline of a joke you haven't heard yet. I turned away from the kitchen and looked down the hallway toward my father's home office. The door, usually kept shut to keep the cat out, was cracked open by 2 inches. I should have made coffee. I should have gone back upstairs and waited for the dinner or something Belle had promised. But the silence pulled me. It was magnetic. I pushed the office door open. The room smelled of cedar and stale coffee. Graham's desk was a chaotic landscape of blueprints and invoices. But right in the center, cleared of all other debris, sat a single document. It was not an original. The paper had the slight gray tint of a photocopy. I walked around the desk. I did not want to look, but I could not stop myself. It was a draft of an HOA enforcement resolution and lien notice. I recognized the header. I recognized the font. But it was the markings that stopped my heart. The document had been aggressively edited. A thick red marker had been used to slash through paragraphs, the ink bleeding slightly into the cheap copy paper. I leaned closer, my hands gripping the edge of the mahogany desk to keep them from shaking. I found my name on page 3. Hadley Cox. A single red line was drawn horizontally through my name. It was not a hesitant line. It was pressed down hard, starting before the H and dragging violently past the X, as if the person holding the pen wanted to ensure the name was not just removed but obliterated. In the margins, in my father's distinctive blocky handwriting, were the words "correct error." All enforcement to Patrice Caldwell, HOA President, and Belle Caldwell. Finalize immediately. October 14th, my birthday. They were not just trying to foreclose on me with fabricated violations. They were doing it as a rite of passage. They were rushing to the HOA lawyer on the morning I became a legal adult to ensure that the moment I had any potential claim to independence, it was severed by Covenant Section 12.3, the Nuisance Resident Clause. The important business they had mentioned was the business of erasing me from the neighborhood. They thought I would cry. That was the script I'd been given for 18 years. I was the emotional one, the sensitive one, the one who tried too hard to be loved by a father who saw me as a remnant of a past life, and a stepmother who saw me as an obstruction to her HOA throne and budget. They expected me to see this, to collapse, to wait for them to come home so I could beg for an explanation. They expected me to apologize for existing, but as I stared at the red ink, something strange happened. I didn't cry. My heart rate didn't even accelerate. Instead, a profound, icy calm settled over me. It was a sensation I had never felt before, like a switch flipping in a circuit breaker. The emotions simply cut out. It was a survival mechanism, instant and absolute. The part of me that was a daughter, the part that wanted a father, died in that quiet office. What remained was something else entirely. I remembered the last time I saw my grandmother, June. She was in the hospice wing, frail as a bird, her skin translucent. She had grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "They think they own the world, Hadley," she had whispered. "But they only own what I let them hold." Wait for the clock. I hadn't understood it then. I had thought it was the morphine talking or the ramblings of a woman who missed her own time. Wait for the clock. I looked at the digital clock on my father's desk. It was 8:15 in the morning. I was 18. I turned around, leaving the office exactly as I had found it. I did not scream. I did not throw the paperweight through the window. I walked out, closed the door to the exact 2-inch gap it had been before, and walked back up the stairs to my room. My laptop was sitting on my duvet. I sat down and opened it. The screen glowed to life, illuminating the dim room. For 5 years I had a bookmark saved in my browser. It was a secure portal for a private wealth management firm in Chicago. Grandma June had given me the login credentials on a slip of paper inside a birthday card when I turned 13. "Don't lose this," she had written. "And don't look at it until you have to." I had logged in a few times over the years just to see the interface. It had always shown a static screen: beneficiary Hadley Cox, status minor custodian Evan Hart. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed in the username. I typed in the password. I hit enter. The screen refreshed. The little spinning wheel turned for 3 seconds that felt like 3 years. Then the dashboard loaded. The interface had changed. The gray banner at the top was now a deep, authoritative blue. The text that had been static for half a decade was gone, replaced by new bold lines of code that had triggered automatically at midnight. Client Hadley Cox, sole trustee status. Active effective date October 14th. I stared at the word sole trustee. I clicked on the tab labeled assets. The list populated. It was a long list: stocks, bonds, diversified portfolios. But at the very top, listed as the primary asset of the June Caldwell Irrevocable Trust, was the address I was currently sitting in, 1402 Oakwood Drive, Stonebridge, Ohio. My father lived here. Patrice redecorated here and ran her HOA empire from the dining table. Belle filmed her videos here. They called it their house. They acted as if they owned the foundation, the walls, and the roof. But they didn't. They never had. Grandma June had placed the house in the trust years before she died. My father had been allowed to live here as a tenant at will under the guardianship of the trust provided he maintained the property and paid the HOA fees on time. He likely believed that once I turned 18 the trust would dissolve or transfer control to him or to the HOA board he sat on. That was probably what he was yelling at Evan Hart about right now, trying to bully the lawyer into signing over the deed, trying to use the HOA resolution to override the trust. He didn't understand how an irrevocable trust worked. It was ironclad. And as of 8 hours and 15 minutes ago, I was the only person on earth who could decide who slept in the master bedroom or who got cited for a 2-inch grass violation. I reached for my phone. My hands were steady. I dialed the number for Evan Hart's direct line, a number I had memorized from the letterhead Grandma used to keep in her Bible. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Evan Hart speaking? A voice answered. He sounded tired, wary. He was probably sitting across from my father at this very second listening to Graham scream about fairness and rights and HOA authority. I didn't say hello. I didn't identify myself. I didn't ask why my father was trying to erase me. Sell the house in 12 hours, I said. Can you do it? There was a silence on the other end of the line. It lasted for 2 beats. I could hear the faint sound of a pen tapping against a desk in the background. Hadley. His voice was lower, now softer. I saw the draft, Mr. Hart. I saw the red ink. I know what they are trying to do. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, flat, metallic, devoid of the trembling that should have been there. They want everything, so I want to liquidate the asset today. Now. Hart did not gasp. He did not tell me to calm down or to think it over. He did not treat me like a teenager having a tantrum. I am currently in a meeting with your father, Hart said, his voice measured, professional, carrying a hint of dark amusement. He is demanding I release the title to him and to the HOA board. He believes that since you are 18 the guardianship period is over and the property defaults to the next of kin or to the association under covenant enforcement. He is wrong, I said. He is very wrong. Hart agreed. The trust stipulates that upon your 18th birthday you assume full control. You have the unilateral right to hold, manage, or liquidate any asset within the trust, without the consent of any resident or any HOA board member. Can we sell it today? I asked again. I don't want a listing. I don't want open houses. I want it gone. I want cash. I heard Hart shift in his chair. There is a buyer, a developer named Rafael Laredo. He has been making inquiries about the lot for 3 years. He knows the zoning laws better than the city council and he hates HOAs more than anyone. He offers cash and he closes fast. I told him the property was not available. Call him, I said. Tell him it is available, but only if he can close by the end of the business day. Hart was silent for another moment. Then he spoke and I could hear the smile in his voice, the smile of a lawyer who had been waiting a long time to deliver a verdict. Your grandmother June, Hart said quietly, wrote that specific liquidation clause for this exact moment. She suspected that on the day you came of age they would try to take what wasn't theirs using their little HOA empire. I looked out the window. The suburban street was quiet. A neighbor was walking a golden retriever past the HOA welcome sign that read, "Welcome to Stonebridge, where rules keep us beautiful." The world looked normal, but inside this house the timeline had just snapped. Do it, I said. I'll authorize everything through the portal. I'll prepare the paperwork, Hart said. Happy birthday, Hadley. I hung up the phone. I stood up and walked to my mirror. I looked at the girl in the reflection. She looked the same as she had yesterday. Same dark hair, same pale eyes, but she wasn't the same yesterday. She was a daughter waiting for scraps of affection. Today she was the landlord and the HOA enforcer was about to learn what real power felt like. They had spent the morning scratching my name out of an HOA resolution, thinking they were cutting me off from my future. They didn't realize that by waiting until today they had handed me the match. They had tried to erase me on the very day they lost the right to stand on my floor and fine me for breathing. I looked at the clock. 8:20 in the morning. I had less than 4 hours to pack my life into a few boxes. By the time they came home to celebrate their victory, there would be a sold sign on the lawn, the locks would be changed, and the entire board would be staring at a developer who didn't give a damn about Covenant 4.2. The silence in the house didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like the calm before a very necessary storm.